I'm gonna practice it on Main Street.
Just kidding. You can. I now call the January 21st, 2020 regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led in by Councilwoman Schatze and the invocation by Councilman Hancock.
I pledge
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we are grateful and humbled by the opportunity to serve the city of Riverton. We ask that it please keep our charge in mind and that we can recognize the importance that it is to listen to and respond to the needs of the citizens. We thank thee very much for the opportunity to serve and ask that it please bless us that we can have our minds quickened and that our intellect can be sharp and we can be aware of the needs of those who reside within this great city. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Would the city clerk please conduct roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Tim Hancock.
Here.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilwoman Rebecca Schatze.
Here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilman Corey Rhoda.
Here.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Here. The chair would entertain a motion to excuse Carla Borders from this evening's.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is Councilman Larson, and the second is Councilman Hancock. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passed. I declare a quorum is present. Approval of the agenda. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion by Councilwoman Schatze and a second by Councilman Corey Rhoda. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item that is scheduled for a public hearing will be given the opportunity to speak during the public hearing. Anyone wishing to address the council on any item may speak now. I would ask those individuals wishing to address the council at this time to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record.
My name is Cheryl Coleman. I'm the area chairman for Fremont County Ducks Unlimited.
It's nice to have you tonight. What could we help you with?
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'd just like to share some of the results from our event last year and again possibly seek your support this year for hanging our flags on Main Street for the week prior to our event. That support was granted last year, and as a result, we had outstanding success. Part of what our chapter focuses on is efficiency, so making the most money that we can for conservation by spending the least amount of money possible. So we look at cheap or free sources of advertising as part of that initiative, and we were the leader in the state for efficiency. Our chapter exceeded that. Beat every other chapter in the state for that. We received 3 state-level awards and 1 national-level award, partially from your support for hanging those flags on Main Street. It really got people talking about the event. That was highlighted in the Wyoming State Conservation Report that's put out through Ducks Unlimited. We also exceeded our fundraising from the last 10 years, set a record for that. And we also got the Committee of the Year in the state of Wyoming and the Area Chairman of the Year.
Fantastic.
So we'd like to, actually, can I share another little
Please.
fact? So we just had our state convention in Thermopolis 2 weekends ago, and that's when we received these awards. And I'm sorry my committee couldn't be here with me tonight. I gave them about 30 minutes' notice. Because I actually forgot about it. Howard delegated it to me at the last minute, so. So our conservation staff from Colorado and Montana and North Dakota for the Great Plains region takes the money that we make in Wyoming and seeks matching private dollars, federal grants, all the extra money they can get. So in the state of Wyoming, at events like ours that we had in Riverton last year, Wyoming raised about $435,000. And then through their work, they were able to match that and put $11 million back into the state of Wyoming for our conservation programs. So if we can hit our net fundraising goal this year of $41,000 at our event that will be held February 8th, if they can maintain that same standard of leverage, that would be $1 million for conservation coming back into the state of Wyoming.
Fantastic. Good job.
Thank you. So we'd like to request if we can hang approximately 30 flags displaying the Ducks Unlimited logo on Main Street and Federal.
Since you're making all that money, we were thinking maybe we could charge you this year.
Well, see, we got to try to get this trophy for efficiency again.
Okay,
So we're trying to be as cheap as possible.
that does make sense. Do we need a vote on the,
Your Honor, you don't require one. If there's no objections to it, then we can allow that to happen.
anybody have any objection?
Wonderful.
Great.
I only have one comment.
Councilman
We ought
Bailey,
to see if you can get the state convention in Riverton next year. See if, again,
we'd love to have
Well,
it.
see, then I would have to show them my duck hunting spots, so. I was thinking maybe Casper.
That makes sense, too. We do really appreciate the work that you do, and it is gratifying to see how far that money goes and how much of it comes back to us. So keep up the good work, and if we can help you anyway, let us know. We'll help.
Okay. We have corporate tables and lots of tickets still available. So it's February 8th. You can get your tickets at fremontcountydu.org.
Super. And we would encourage all of the businesses, I don't know that the city ought to buy a table, but we would encourage all the businesses to get in and support you and do their very best to help. Okay?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
See.
Is there anybody else who would like to talk to the council this evening? Thank you. The chair would, would the city clerk please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, January 7th, 2020, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, January 21st, 2020, Finance Committee meeting. Approval of the Finance Committee recommendations for January 21st, 2020.
Are there any further, are there any items requiring further discussion? Councilman Larson?
No, I'm pointing towards Mike.
Councilman
yeah,
Bailey?
give me a second, I'm pulling it up here. I'm behind the curve, sorry.
We elected him pro temp financial.
And I forgot to pull the meeting, or the packet up so I can read the attachments here. Apologize.
Ernie, did you capture that plaque?
Yes,
Good boy. Thank you.
three of them.
Okay, Your Honor. The Finance Committee approved the following consideration of claims for the amount to be paid of $163,451.71. Manual checks in the amount of $19,828.79. Payroll and liabilities for 1/3 of 2020 in the amount of $200,083.54 for a total of $383,364.04.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
A motion by Councilwoman Schatz and a second by Councilman Hancock. Any further discussion?
Your Honor, I would abstain on the Finance Committee line items for Bailey Enterprises.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. The fiscal year 18-19 audit report with the financial director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Included in your packet this evening is the annual audit for the fiscal year 18-19, as completed by our auditing firm, ACM LLP, in accordance with government auditing standards. It is the responsibility of the staff and management to comprise the financial statements for the City of Riverton. However, it is the auditor's responsibility to express an opinion on the financial statements based on the audit. Pursuant to auditing the financial statements, the auditors also conduct testing of internal control measures for compliance with certain provisions pursuant to contracts, grant agreements, leases, laws, regulations, etc. In addition to financial reporting and internal control, other information is reported in the audit, including additional analysis regarding expenditures of federal awards received by the city. And on the phone with us this evening, we have Abby Hagerman of ACM LLP, and she would like to present her recordings of the audit this year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mia. Can everybody hear me okay?
I can. Everybody else?
Great.
okay?
Yes.
So first and foremost, we want to thank the council and the city staff for the opportunity to continue to provide audit services to the city of Riverton. I've worked on the city of Riverton in some capacity or another in the 10 years that I've been with the firm. So it's nice to continue to work with them and move up in my role in the services that I've provided to them. Your staff has always been, and I anticipate will continue to be very helpful and accommodating in our audit process. Auditing standards require us to send letters directly to the City Council to notify you that our audit will occur and what findings are found at the conclusion of the audit. These letters formally invite any member of Council to contact the auditors directly or visit us during our preliminary or field work or at any other time throughout the year. While we work closely with the staff, the top level of governance is the City Council, and all of our audit reports are addressed directly to the Mayor and Council. The Auditing Standards Council of the AICPA would require us to communicate any instances of errors or irregularities, illegal acts, significant changes in accounting policies, lack of cooperation, or scope limitations. But thankfully, I don't have any of those to report. The actual audit engagement itself was for the year ended June 30th, 2019, and as Mia mentioned, it's in compliance with generally accepted auditing standards. The objective of the financial audit is to provide reasonable but not absolute assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatements. Additionally, we test internal controls over financial reporting and compliance with other matters in accordance with government audit standards, and we would report to you any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. The results of our engagement are that we issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. This means that we can provide reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatements, and it's the cleanest opinion that you can receive. During our tests of internal control over financial reporting and compliance, we noted no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. And finally, during our test of compliance over major federal award programs, which we tested the Airport Improvement Program for fiscal year 19, we found no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. So in conclusion, your staff is timely, accommodating, and very knowledgeable, and we, as always, appreciate the opportunity to continue to service the City of Riverton for their auditing needs, and we look forward to working with you guys in fiscal year 20. So at this point, I would entertain any questions.
Thank you for your report. Does anyone have a question they'd like to have answered? It appears we don't.
All right. Well, fair enough.
Thank you for your assistance. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. If you guys ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.
We'll do it. Here is an appropriate spot to praise the city staff. Mia does a wonderful job with this and always has for years, and we do appreciate her efforts, and it's a lot of work. It's not easy to get a clean report, and there's a lot of things that have to go into it. So doesn't necessarily mean that we're healthy and got all the money in the world, but it does mean that we have spent it appropriately. So We do appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
The chair would entertain a motion to accept the fiscal year 1819 audit report.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion by Councilman Larson and a second by Councilman Hancock. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The motion passed. Ordinance number 19-014, third and final reading of the Riverton Municipal Code 17.22.170 flags. Would the city clerk please read ordinance number 19-014 by title only, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 19-014 on third and final reading. An ordinance amending Title 17 zoning to revise Chapter 17.22 signs, Section 17.22.170 flags of the Riverton Municipal Code and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 19-014 on third and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Schatz and a second by Councilman Bailey. Any further discussion?
Your Honor.
Councilman Hancock.
So I've had some feedback on this. I guess when you're the only one that is voting against something, people that are against it actually reach out to you to let you know their thoughts. I've had 3 people reach out to me. Each of them have said they're opposed to this ordinance for different reasons. Some because they don't like the idea of having a bar become a landmark in Riverton, Wyoming. I understand that concern. But interestingly enough, one that really was the most beneficial was someone that reached out to me and said, well, the way this is actually worded, it would make it so that there are no restrictions on flags whatsoever. Not for engineering, not for anything. Because the way it's worded says flags mounted on flagpoles, we're getting rid of that language, are considered signs and must comply with all provisions of this chapter. So they don't have to comply with any provisions in the chapter whatsoever, would not have to be engineered to any specifications, and just wouldn't have any restrictions on them at all. So that was interesting, and I think definitely was somebody that caught something that I didn't, and I appreciated the feedback. I guess my other concern with this is, as I think I've said before, well, I haven't said this before, but I just think that you could have any size of flag here. You have any problems with it, if they start flying a flag that isn't a flag of the United States of America or the state flag of Wyoming, getting somebody to get that down would require, as I've said, litigation, that sort of thing. And I think when you start to regulate what people, the content of what people are doing, what they're, basically you're saying whatever people are communicating, which in this case would be a flag, you'd be regulating and saying it's limited to certain things, I think could run afoul of the First Amendment, as I've said before. Not that I necessarily agree with it, but I think could run into problems in that area. So those are my concerns, and I will continue to vote against this ordinance, but I just wanted to make the rest of the council aware of it. That's it.
Thank you. Councilman Larson.
Did I hear you say there is no requirements? I think I asked Rich last time, and the engineering department said that it must have an engineered foundation that must be certified by a design guy capable of stamping that it is going to hold that flag up. That sounds like it's a lot of restrictions to me. And secondly, if we have that, we would do some type of ensure that Normally, if you're going to fly other than a United States flag, you're going to have some money behind it to put something like this up, some purpose. So I know that we could have a camel and a zebra and an alligator walking down Main Street. That's not impossible, but that would be right next to it.
Councilman Bailey?
And I guess to me, I feel like the reason that we are saying that the state of Wyoming flag and the U.S. flag can be flown is, I don't think those two could be considered advertising, if that's what you want to call it. Where we're in the sign ordinance area, we're talking about advertising, okay? And so I think any other flag would have to be considered advertising, and I think we're restricting advertising to the sign ordinance, which is 25 feet or whatever the number is.
30.
And so I guess to me, I put the U.S. flag and the state of Wyoming flag in a different category than I would a flag that says Chevy, GM, or Dodge, or Sinclair, Phillips, or Conoco, or, any of the other flags that you can think of, including foreign countries. You're going to have the Chinese restaurant fly a Chinese flag, and the Mexican restaurant fly a Mexican flag, and, those are all considered advertising to me. Where the U.S. flag and the state flag is not, and I think that's why I think they need to be considered differently. And I think having one that's above the height restrictions that we do advertising is not unreasonable, so.
Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilman Hancock?
But the point is this doesn't do that. This makes it so that any kind of flag, it used to be that we said flags are subject to the signs rules. And so if flags are subject to the signs rules, they can only be at a certain height. But we are saying here, flags mounted on flagpoles in excess of sign heights shall be limited to that. It doesn't restrict flags at all. Any kind of flag will be allowed on any kind of pole at any height except higher than 20 feet. And then at that point, it can only be the flag of the United States of America and the state of Wyoming. No restrictions. That's what this is. And it's,
And it shall be limited to the flag of the United States of America and the state of Wyoming.
but,
So that's the only ones that could fly above the sign height, correct?
right.
Okay.
But-
And I don't think we should restrict flags of sign height. I don't care if you want to hang a Ford or a Chevy sign or a flag or whatever other you have. I think, that's advertising, and that should be restricted the same as any other advertising, whether it's a billboard sign or a flagpole with the same kind of message on it, it's the same thing. Where a U.S. flag and a state flag is not the same as advertising.
And you're correct. But the point is, we used to say that flags were subject to the signs rules. And we are not saying that anymore.
Your Honor.
So,
Tim, you're saying with the, construction and maintenance of the pole, is that what you're referring to when you're referring to rules?
Right, yes, and whether they'd have to be engineered or anything. That came about because they were considered signs. And signs have to be approved, if I'm not wrong.
Your Honor, I might be able to provide a little bit of clarification there.
Thank you.
Any structure or flagpole over 15 feet would be regulated by the International Building Code and would require an engineered foundation and engineered, for the wind load that we experience here, flag size would have to be engineered. So anything over 15 feet would be required to have engineering performed on it, a stable foundation. Basically, what the ordinance is, the intent of the ordinance is to allow for flag signage, advertising signage up to the same limit as the sign regulation, and then anything past that would then be limited to the American flag or the state of Wyoming flag.
Thank you. That's the way I understand that, and the reason that we left the height ordinance off of it, it varies. The one that Mr. Howard is proposing is an 80-foot flag. The city of Rock Springs has put up a 160-foot flag. The size of the flag varies at that point by its nature. So I think we have the ordinance covered for the need of structural foundation and structural pole. And illumination, I believe, also was covered, was it not?
Your Honor, that's correct. Other items within Chapter 17 restrict illumination of any sign.
And so I think Councilman Hancock's point is well versed in the fact that somebody could come along and take exception with the fact that we're only allowing American flags and the state of Wyoming flags to be higher than 50 feet, 30 feet. Help me with that, Eric. Was it 50 feet or 30 feet in the sign ordinance?
So there's two or different designations. Main Street, where we're talking about, would be 30 feet.
And when he says there's two different designations, that kicks my mind to the fact that outside of town, from, is it Monroe south, you can have a 40-foot flag, but inside of that, it drops to 30. It's 30 all the way up Main Street, and then it goes back to a 40-foot flag at Webwood.
Your Honor, I'll go ahead and read the ordinance as it is written.
Thank you.
The Federal Boulevard corridor, so federal, consisting of the commercially zoned property 200 feet either side of the center line, north of Webwood, so moving out of town north from Webwood, and south of Monroe, shall have a maximum sign height of 40 feet. Federal Boulevard between Webwood and North Monroe, so the interior of town, and Main Street shall have a maximum sign height of 30 feet. The balance of commercially zoned property shall have a maximum height of 20 feet. So there, it's a little bit confusing, but those are the designations.
Thank you. Now, it doesn't limit us from people still asking for exception to those rules, but those are the rules, and they do apply to all the flags that stay under that. So if my business, if I wanted to fly a flag, I couldn't exceed 30 feet, and I would have to have a proper designed pole and a proper designed foundation.
That's correct.
And so I think we have it covered, and yes, there'll be times when somebody may want to sue over the fact that we're only allowing two flags to go higher than that, and I'm one that's willing to accept that responsibility. Any other comments? Seeing no further discussion, would the chair please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Tim Hancock.
A.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Aye.
Councilwoman Rebecca Schatze.
Aye.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Yes.
Councilman Corey Rhoda.
Yes.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Yes. You read too fast, I can't keep up. The motion passes. Ordinance number 19-016, third and final reading, franchise agreement with High Plains Power. Would the city clerk please read ordinance number 19-016 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 19-016 on third and final reading. An ordinance granting to High Plains Power, Inc., a Wyoming corporation, its successors and assigns a non-executive right and franchise to construct, maintain, and operate along, across, and under the present and future streets, alleys, public places, and the ways of the city of Riverton, Fremont County, Wyoming, an electric light and power system for the purpose of supplying electricity and electric service to the city of Riverton, the inhabitants thereof, and others, subject to the terms and conditions and to making to the making of payments specified in the ordinance, and repealing enrolled ordinance number 05-004 of the City of Riverton, passed and adopted March 15, 2005.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt number 19-016 on third and final reading.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion by Councilwoman Schatza and a second by Councilman Bailey. Any discussion? Seeing none, would the city clerk please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Corey Rhoda.
Aye.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rebecca Schatza.
Aye.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Aye.
Councilman Tim Hancock.
Aye.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Aye. Motion passes. Consideration for ordinance number 19-015, third and final reading. Riverton Municipal Code, Chapter 13.04, billing process for the public services, 19-017, third and final reading. Riverton Municipal Code, 3.08, water service systems, 19-018, third and final reading. Riverton Municipal Code, Chapter 3.20, sewer systems, sewer service systems, 19-019, third and final reading. Riverton Municipal Code, Chapter 8.12, garbage collection and disposal. Would the city clerk please read ordinance number 19-015, 19-017, 19-018, and 19-019 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 19-015 on third and final reading, an ordinance amending Title 13 Public Services to revise Chapter 13.04 Billing Procedures for Public Services, repealing Section 13.04.110 Base Charges for Services of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for an effective date. Proposed ordinance number 19-017 on third and final reading, an ordinance amending Title 13 Public Services to revise Chapter 13.08 Water Service System, Section 13.08.440 Notice Requirements, and Section 13.08.450 When Due and Payable Late Charges of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for an effective date. Proposed ordinance number 19-018 on third and final reading, an ordinance amending Title 13 Public Services to revise Chapter 13.20 Sewer Service System, Section 13.20.190 Fees Amount, Section 13.20.330 General Statement of Rate Structure, Section 13.20.360 Notice Requirements, and Section 13.20.370 When Due and Payable Late Charges of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for an effective date. Proposed ordinance number 19-019 on third and final reading, an ordinance amending Title 8 Health and Safety to revise Chapter 8.12 Garbage Collection and Disposal, Section 8.12.290 Monthly Payment, and Section 8.12.300 Notification of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 19-015 on third and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey has the motion. Second is Councilwoman Schatza. Discussion? Seeing none, would the chair please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Tim Hancock.
Or you want to be the chair, or you want to be the city clerk?
I'll be the clerk.
Aye.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Aye.
Councilwoman Rebecca Schatza.
Aye.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Aye.
Councilman Corey Rhoda.
Aye.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Aye. Motion passes. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 19-017 on third and final reading.
So moved.
Second?
A motion by Councilwoman Schatz and a second by Councilman Rhoda. Any discussion? Seeing none, would the city clerk please conduct a roll call vote?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Corey Rhoda,
Aye.
Councilman Kyle Larson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rebecca Schatze,
Aye.
Councilman Mike Bailey,
Aye.
Councilman Tim Hancock,
Aye.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Aye. Motion passes. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 19-018 on third and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Rhoda has the motion and second by Councilwoman Schatze. Any further discussion? Would the city clerk please conduct roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Tim Hancock,
Aye.
Councilman Mike Bailey,
Aye.
Councilwoman Rebecca Schatze,
Aye.
Councilman Kyle Larson,
Aye.
Councilman Corey Rhoda,
Aye.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Aye. Motion passes. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 19-019 on third and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson has the motion, and Councilman Rhoda has the second. Any discussion? Would the city clerk please conduct roll call vote?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Corey Rhoda,
Aye.
Councilman Kyle Larson,
Aye.
Councilwoman Rebecca Schatze,
Aye.
Councilman Mike Bailey,
Aye.
Councilman Tim Hancock,
Aye.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Aye. The motion passes. Board appointments for the Airport Board, Community Engagement Committee, the Force Committee, the Tree Board, and the Planning Commission. Would the could we have the city administrator's report, please?
Thank you, Your Honor. The City of Riverton recently advertised for vacancies on a number of city boards. As pointed out previously, these boards include the Force Committee, Airport Board, Tree Board, Planning Commission, and Community Engagement Committee. The city received the attached applications that you have been provided. With regard to the Force Committee staff, the proposed appointment for the Force Committee is for Jeremy Cruz, who we received a letter from to be appointed to that board. For the Airport Board, it is proposed to reappoint Bob Labita and Jim Gores, and to move Kim Lee into the position vacated by Bruce Kaminga's resignation. We received no applications for the Tree Board at this time, so we would still put that out there, that there are vacancies on that we would accept any applications for. With regard to the Planning Commission, we have recently lost 2 members. At this point, we would seek to, or 1 member with the other one expected. With that in mind, we would seek to appoint Travis Guthrie and Randy Watson, Travis Guthrie to the position that is vacant, and Randy Watson to the alternate member position, with the understanding that if the other position is vacated, that individual would actually move to the full-time position. Additionally, we have not received any additional applications for the Community Engagement Committee at this time. Staff recommends approval of the appointees as presented and would ask. Oh, Your Honor, I apologize. And we would propose Ralph Estelle Jr. as an airport alternate.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the mayor's board appointments for the Airport Board, Force Committee, and the Planning Commission.
So moved. Second.
Councilman Larson has the motion, and Councilwoman Schatze has the second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The motion passes. Hill Street Consultant Selection, Public Works Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. On October 14th, the Force Committee unanimously approved 5 projects for the upcoming year. Those projects are East Sunset, Gannett Drive, Cambridge Village, Summit Drive, and Hill Street. 4 of those 5 will be designed in-house and managed in-house. However, Hill Street is one that we do not have time or the ability to manage in-house. Therefore, we advertise for statements of qualification from engineering firms. Hill Street has a traffic count of 2,966 a day, that was in 2016, and exhibits degrading asphalt, pavement corrugation, failing curb and gutter, and other issues. In the advertisement, we have requested a qualified firm to remediate these issues and also to consider the addition of a deceleration lane / turn lane from Hill Street onto Main Street, northbound turning eastbound. Staff advertised the request for qualification and received the following submittals of qualifications from Apex Surveying Incorporated, James Gores and Associates, Imberg Miller Engineers, Solterra Engineering, and William H. Smith and Associates. A selection committee was appointed to rate the statements of qualification against 5 criteria: completeness of the submittal, understanding of the project, qualification of the firm, successful completion of similar projects, and the capability to meet the proposed timeframe. The committee was made up of 2 city staff members, 2 members of the Forest Committee, and 1 city council member. Each of those selection committee members individually rated the submittals of qualification, and as communicated in your packet, Imberg Miller Engineers rated the highest from the 5 different areas of rating. James Gores and Associates rated second. Staff recommends that the city council select Imberg Miller as the qualified firm and directs staff to negotiate a contract for services, which includes a fee for service. The council may also direct staff to enter into negotiations, let me back up. That the council directs staff to interview the top-rated firms, whether the top 2 or the top 3, if you so choose. And maybe as a point of information, when selecting engineering and architecture firms, we do have a policy on that we follow a qualification-based selection, not a price-based selection. The reason being, when you're doing something for a public project that relates to public safety, you want the most qualified person addressing that. It's like when you go to the doctor, you want the most qualified doctor, not necessarily the cheapest doctor, or perhaps the most qualified lawyer, not the cheapest lawyer. Engineering and architecture firms are the same. Therefore, we advertise for qualifications, rate on qualifications. Once the most qualified firm is selected, we then go into negotiations and review fee proposals. If staff cannot come to an agreement on the negotiated price of the selected firm, we then stop negotiations and go to the second rated firm and begin negotiations with that firm. Since we have not reviewed fee proposals, we don't have a budget impact on this. However, there are sufficient funds in the 1% account to cover this selection process. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Kyle. Kyle, could you give me the road count again, please?
Yes, Your Honor, that's 2,966.
66. And that year was?
That was done in 2016. And I apologize for the levity, but that's the accurate date in that staff report. Many of the others show the wrong year. The new year's tough on me, apparently, because I put 2020 when it was meant to be 2019, and 2018 when it was meant to be 2019, but I figured you're smart people, and you figured it out.
Thanks, we appreciate that information. That's a lot of traffic. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the selection of Imberg Miller Engineering as an engineering firm for the Hill Street Improvement Project.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey has a motion, second by Councilman Rhoda. Discussion. Councilman Hancock.
This seems pretty close in terms of 96, 94, 93. Is that a typical spread, I guess, with that? I was involved in this when we were picking out for the splash pad, and I don't remember it being that close. Am I off?
Your Honor, Councilman, it is a close selection. We have had closer where we felt the only way to make the selection was by interviews, and that was within, 0.5 of a point between the top rated and the second rated. The good news is we have a lot of qualified engineering firms in town, and all of those that could take on the work proposed, and so it was a tough process, I know, for those that were on the committee.
Any other discussion? My thought, and And it's simply this, I think Councilman Hancock's correct, when we're so tight in, from 96 to 92, 91 actually, if I put my glasses back on. And then the thought comes to me, I realize that people like this, and the engineers have even told me that they like this process. How do you know when you go into negotiations that you're getting the best price?
Your Honor, we try to establish a baseline internally so that we can compare the hours that we think it would take to design that project. And so we benchmark it against what we feel is an estimated fee that's appropriate for the work. And then as we negotiate the scope of work, because there are items that are still unknown on this project, and that's why we need the professional help of a qualified engineering firm. And so as they bring up points that maybe staff has not thought of at that time, we consider again the appropriate amount of time and if it's appropriate to have a sub-consultant work on that. So maybe the short answer to your question is we try and establish an estimate internally and compare it against what they propose.
Do we keep track of which firm gets the work? This is all done with 1 cent, and with it being as tight as it is, the whole concept behind the 1 cent was to keep the work locally, and we do that, but I don't necessarily think it's fair to keep it on one firm, even if we rate them to be the best when the rating is so tight.
Your Honor, yes, we do track that. And to be honest, we try and do most of this engineering in-house. We have talented staff, and I feel that's the best way to save dollars on the 1% fund so we can put the money on the road and not in the engineering. As an example, the Gannett Davis project went through this process. HDR Engineers was selected. That was a very tight selection committee. In fact, that's the one we went to interviews afterwards. The pavement assessment project was put through this process, and that one was not a local firm that received that project. It was one out of Arizona, IMS Infrastructure. But really, those are, off the top of my mind right now, the third-party engineering services we've received for 1% work. Outside of that, we've asked for help in review of our internal design, and we've had some local firms do that to check whether or not we're looking at all the variables, checking our equations, et cetera. So we've had, I don't know how to say this, but spot check services from third parties on our own designs.
Yeah, I hope that could be addressed, and maybe we ought to fine tune that just a little bit so that those dollars move around the community a little bit and others get a shot at it. My fear is the same thing that I have with the real estate, is that people quit accepting our invitations to bid when they never get any work.
Sure.
And then my other concept is simply, in my line of work, and I think in most everybody else's, we don't make a choice on what we buy until we know what it's costing. And so maybe we ought to change that to where we actually, from those top three or whatever, we select a bid. And then I realize that the bid can't be inclusive if there's something unknown, but if then we could turn to what the cost was and select off the cost, we could tell a taxpayer that we were doing our very best with their dollars, and then still leave a change order option in for when we find something that's out of the scope. So those are all subjects that we can talk about. I think the other thing is that in doing them in-house, explain to everybody else what you mean by engineering done by in-house.
Sure. So as the Forest Committee helps select these projects, we have staff internally that can professionally design and professionally stamp these plans so that they're put out to bid, so a competitive bid can be made. We get help from the Community Development Department. Bob Sprague goes out and surveys for us. Brendan Tolman is a professional engineer and is very capable to do these designs. Before Brendan was on board, Don Wilhelm also was able to do that, and that's how we spend a lot of our off-season. We try and handle these in-house because we have the professional skill to do so.
And it would be your opinion that we save money in doing that?
Your Honor, that would be my opinion.
And I think that's what we're all about, is trying to make that 1% money stretch as far as we can. But I would like to discuss that at length of how we can spread those dollars around if we can. Can we restrict out-of-state firms with that 5%, like the Wyoming contractors? The highway construction can restrict that to a 5% preference to in-state work.
Your Honor, I've done a little bit of research on this, but not thorough research, and my understanding at this point is you cannot give a local preference for a qualification-based selection.
Anybody else got any questions?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I feel uncomfortable constantly seeing that top name. They're surveying water, they're doing a lot of things, and I don't doubt their professionalism. I just feel that we need to ensure that other people survive in this area. So I'm siding with you. I know it's a shock, but
Unusual, but I'm glad to see that.
I feel that way.
Good deal. Kyle, you mentioned that there's a possibility that you could take those top three and interview them to see if there's a way to shake up that list.
Yes, Your Honor. When we advertised the request for qualification, we stated that if selection could not be made by the ranking alone, that we could go to interviews. If we do that, I want to make sure that we don't waste the time of those firms to prepare for those interviews. Even these statements of qualification take a lot of time on these firms, and we do want to be respectful of that. But we do have that option. It was advertised to the firms that we can hold interviews in addition to this ranking and come back with a more honed down recommendation from the selection committee.
Councilman Bailey?
I guess, in this case, I would recommend that we follow through with our process the way we've designed it. But I would agree that I think we need to maybe look at that and see if it could be modified to factor in some additional data that we make a decision with. I guess I don't think it's fair to change horses in the middle of the stream, on this specific project. But I think if we could modify our process to be better in the future, I think that would be a good idea.
Am I to understand that we don't, I thought I just heard you say that we put that in the qualifications, that we could go to further interviews. So we really aren't changing horses in the middle of the stream, but we are, I understand that your recommendation is to go to Enberg Miller. And I don't want to disparage Enberg Miller, they're top firm, top flight, but all of them on the list, the top three, I know really well, the bottom two I don't. So I wouldn't have a problem with any of the top three personally, but I don't want to have just my opinion count there. But maybe, could we request that you go to interviews with those three?
Your Honor, absolutely. This selection is your direction to give us. The selection committee rated they rated the firms that submitted, and it came out that Enberg Miller was the highest out of that ranking. But you definitely have that prerogative to direct us to do further interviews.
And the difference between the ranking is 96, 94, 93. So there's 3 points of discretion in 100 points. So I'm comfortable with that. Anybody, do we need to make an amendment to that, or do we? Nodding heads. So
We have to kill the motion that we've got on the table, or could we just?
we make amendment to it?
Your Honor, I believe you could make an amendment to the motion to direct staff to go out to conduct interviews.
On the Hill Street
Oh.
improvement.
I stand corrected. I would If that's the direction you would want to go, I guess the easiest and most clean way would be to kill the initial motion, vote it down, and then bring another motion that says to go to interviews.
My other question before we go past that, are we time sensitive? Are we backed up at all for timing?
Your Honor, we'd like to do this as soon as possible, but I think we can work with the top 3 rated firms if that's who you'd like to select, if that's the threshold you'd want to make, and work with them on a time frame that's still expeditious to getting something prepared and bid out, so we're not bidding this in July and hopefully bidding it in April, May.
Correct. I totally agree with that. So if we proceed to a vote, if we're trying to get it to where we can have other interviews with the top 3, we need to vote this down.
Your Honor, yes, that would be my recommendation.
So, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
So the motion failed. So now the chair would entertain a motion to interview the top 3 engineering firms for the Hill Street engineering.
Your Honor, I second.
So Councilman Larson has the motion, and Councilman Hancock has the second. Further discussion?
Okay, so I have a question. If you're going to interview them, is price involved in the interview?
Your Honor, it is not. Price is not considered until you make a selection.
Okay. So
And- Go ahead.
So I guess, how are you going to rate the firms quantifiably, if that's a real word, so that you will then be able to make the decision after you have an interview that was better or worse than the decision that we made as a selection committee?
Your Honor, we'll have to come up with another metric where we can rate each firm during their interviews as to their level of qualification for this specific project. And then we'll come back. I imagine it will be a tough ranking, just because the firms are all qualified firms, but that's what we'll do. We'll develop the metric. Each selection committee member will individually rate, we'll combine it, and then come back.
Can that be tied to the fact of how many 1-cent jobs you've received? Is that an unfair qualification?
Your Honor, what we could do is understanding of local conditions. We put that into the metric before, but I think it would be challenging to include a selection based on how many projects they've received, because it's not going to their level of qualification. If anything, it would support their level of qualification, not disqualify them.
And see, I have that same, you've had the same discussion with me over the years with Javiation, and they're the most qualified and the most adept, but if they get all the work, how does anybody else get qualified? And so somewhere we have to break that scale to the fact that Sage Engineering sometimes gets some work at the airport so that they can get adept at doing aviation work. So I don't mean to be contrasting, but what I see is to get the work, we need to spread the work around. And the same thing happens to us, we need to spread the work around to continue to get qualified bidders. So we don't get somebody that says, well, I put in for this 6 times in a row and I just never seem to break the 96 requirement. So those are my thoughts, and I'm not critical of any of the process. I just would like the work shared a little bit more comprehensive.
Your Honor, we do have, this policy was last reviewed in 2015. We can go through it again. There are restrictions on consultant selection, specifically for engineering and architecture services. If federal and state dollars are used, if local dollars are used, we can develop a policy without the oversight of federal and state law. But we can definitely review this policy again and see if there are amendments that you as a council would like to propose.
1-cent money would be considered local?
Your Honor, that's correct.
Okay. That answer you? Anybody else have any?
Your Honor. I guess I would note, price comes in after you make the selection, and then you're negotiating, and you could still, after you make the selection and negotiate, say, they're not getting the best price. So I think the point is, we're trying to find the most qualified person. Then once we find that person, just like you might not want the most expensive, the most qualified doctor, it depends on what I'm dealing with. I might not want the most qualified doctor because he's the most expensive. So, I think once we even make the selection, we still have the option of looking at it and saying, what we said in-house, what we estimated, so we just go to the next one on the list. So I guess the point is price is coming into it, and I want to make sure that's clear with what Mr. Butterfield had said, that we still have the ability to do that.
Your Honor, that's correct. We understand there are a lot of very qualified local firms, and we would love to work with any of them. However, we also want a fair and unbiased selection process. Without that, it becomes very subjective, and it would be a merry-go-round of just picking firms. And if you didn't pick firms in a fair process going around the table, who do you leave out? Who do you select? Who's qualified to do what? And so we find this is currently the fairest way to make that selection, even though some firms don't get selected.
I think we've ridden this horse to the ground. Anybody else have any comments? So we have an amendment, no, we have our own motion. And the motion is that we interview the top three and try to find the qualifying error there that gives us an advantage to who we select. The motion was by Councilman Larson, and the second was by Councilman Hancock. No other discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Airport lease agreement, the Riverton Local Food Hub. Public Works Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ignore the dates on some of these ones, too. This is the one where I did 2018 and 2019. But anyways, this is the second lease. Again, I apologize for the levity. This is the second lease proposal with the Riverton Local Food Hub, and this is a very good idea. After a few months of operation, the Local Food Hub realized that they're missing a captive audience in the secure area and proposed that they be able to vend food and beverage in the secure area. We've worked with TSA, and we've made contacts to the FAA as well to ensure that this is plausible and we're not going to create security issues. And from that research and also some further coordination with the Local Food Hub, we've prepared the lease that's before you. Essentially, the lease is for the remainder of this fiscal year and has an option to be renewed into next fiscal year. The terms of the lease are consistent with other leases that we have and with these specific additions as well. The annual rent is for $288 for 16 square feet, so that's $24 a month for the specific square footage of the counter they like to operate from in the secure area. On top of that, there's a secure room use fee of 10% of the lessee's gross revenue, so it's a concession fee. We found that that's a fair way to receive compensation for the added impact of food and beverage within the entire secure area. If someone spills their cup of coffee, it's not going to be in that 18 or 16 square foot area. It's going to be somewhere else, or the crumbs that will be added in, or the added trash that's going to be there. So the 10% concession is a fair way to be compensated for the impact of the use. As a point of information, we have a similar concession fee for Hertz Rent-A-Car because of the impact they have on our parking lot, which they don't have a square foot rental for. Outside of that, again, it's very similar to the terms that we have. There's a map attached in your packet. Riverton Local Food Hub has reviewed this lease. They are in favor of it, and we recommend that the City Council approve this lease so they can start vending food and beverage in the secure area.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve the lease agreement between the Riverton Regional Airport and the Riverton Local Food Hub.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Schatz has Councilwoman Schatz has a motion and Councilman Hancock has the second. Further discussion?
Your Honor.
Please.
Is the plan like a cart or something? Okay.
It's a movable cart that can roll, and they'll put their commodities on it, roll it in to meet the flights.
So the idea is to attract people to this spot where we won't let them leave. And we will provide food there in the hopes that they'll eat it and we'll get money. I like it. This is a good strategy.
It's a good trap. It just is like going to.
Literally a captive market.
Yes, yes. I loved that. It was a really good use of that word.
If you've been in airports recently, you understand that. That's exactly how it works. A bottle of water jumps to $6, and so there is a use for that. So, with that said, this facility has its own restroom. We've taken in all the observation area is now the secure area because we have that many people boarding the plane. Our new plane is 50 seats, and we're running an average on seating of somewhere around 27, just out of Riverton. So with that said, if we were still in our old jet, we'd take up all but 3 seats. So we're doing a wonderful job there. So I think this is something that we need to do, and it's a good idea. They want you to check into that secure area early, and so that you're locked in there. And if you decide you're hungry, that's the only place you can get something. So it has a multiple service. So, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Consideration of the Cassell contract, a new enterprise resource planning ERP court system. Financial Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. During the fiscal 1920 budget planning session, staff researched several ERP software companies to determine what would best fulfill the current and future software needs of the organization as a whole. The current municipal court software system that is in use today was purchased by the city in 1999, and it's no longer supported by the manufacturer. The court staff has experienced many issues with the software, and it is becoming increasingly frustrating, and they are seeing more issues appearing regularly with the software. And due to the lack of support, it's extra time and work on behalf of our IT department also to help keep this software functioning. Staff is currently limited to functionality with the software as far as reporting, issuing warrants, and utilizing any form of digital communication, including text and email correspondence. Staff received on-site demonstrations from 2 different ERP companies offering a full suite of municipal government software solutions and determined that Cassell would provide the solutions and support to accomplish the goals. However, the pricing for the software for the organization as a whole was unaffordable in last year's budget. But due to the critical condition of the court software, staff budgeted for and council did approve funding to at least replace that module with the Cassell product, with the end goal being that all current systems at the city of Riverton would at some point convert to Cassell as funding becomes available. The council did approve a budget of $25,000 for this project for the court software. The proposed pricing for Cassell software and services is $14,850. This does include license fees, setup, conversion, and remote training for the court staff. The agreement does require a deposit of 50% of the total proposal price with the order, and then the remaining balance would be due upon completion of training. It should be noted that because the court staff has been working on the Cassell software, we did opt for remote training versus on-site training, and that did help reduce the costs to the city as far as the purchase of the software goes. The budget will realize a savings this year of $10,150 on the purchase of the software. And then ongoing expenses associated with system support will be about $2,436 per year to the general fund. At this time, staff does recommend that the council approve the contract with Cassell to purchase the court module software.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the contract with Cassell to purchase a new ERP court system software.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Hancock has the motion, and Councilman Rhoda has the second. Any further discussion? Thanks for the savings. That's a good job.
Thank you.
From 25 to 14, 10,000, I appreciate that.
How excited is Megan?
Very.
Doing handstands. They do a lot of work with that software, and last I see in the weekly was 1,700 and some open cases,
Correct.
so greatly needed. And maybe you'd like to take a minute and tell us about your excitement if we could ever afford the meter enhancement. Want to take?
Was I a little overzealous in my weekly report last week with the metering system? We had the opportunity to meet with a representative of Census Metering System, along with the staff in collection and distribution. And the system that we use right now for metering is quite antiquated. With the new proposed system that we would love to have in our community, would allow the staff to monitor meters within the departments versus requiring that our water staff go on site to read meters. We would be able to pull readings right from in-house, as well as when we have issues with needing to shut off water services. The meters actually have the capability of being able to be shut off remotely. The new meters also would be able to monitor water temperatures, so it would send us notifications if the water temperature dropped to a certain point where it could cause freezing and breakage in not only the meter, but in customer water lines. So those are just some of the great things that they can do. We process approximately, on average, I would guess about 120 service transfers per month, people moving in and out of their properties. That does require that our staff produce work orders to send down to the collection and distribution department. The guys have to get in their trucks, drive over to the property, program the information into a radio, read the meters, go back to the shop, and complete the information from the readings onto the work order system, and then send them back up to the city staff in the billing department. And with these new meters, we would be able to pull those right from the software and implement it into the utility billing software. And that would free up the guys in collection and distribution to be able to perform more maintenance and better help detect leaks and do different functionalities like that within the system. Also, with these meters, they are able to help us determine where we are experiencing leakage in our system as well. So it's pretty sophisticated, fantastic system. So.
That is amazing. You know, right now, the city of Lander's asking everybody to run a water stream the size of a pencil lead, and it would be extremely great information to be able to tell the temperature of those meters so that we could help people. You know, we've had meters break and run water in thousands of gallons of water in vacant buildings. And so that's great technology.
If I may, Your Honor. Also, with our current metering system, we monitor water on the 1,000 gallons, and we bill on the per 1,000 gallons. And with the new system, they are able to monitor water beginning from the very first gallon. The other nice thing about that is that our citizens would be able to monitor their waters also, their water usage online. So if they feel that they might have a leak, they have the opportunity to log out into their utility account online and monitor their water usage that way as well.
That would be helpful, wouldn't it? Yeah. Thanks for that. I appreciate that information.
I assume the $10,000 savings on software is not enough to cover that.
I'm always afraid to ask what the cost is. So one of these days they'll tell me. All in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Quarterly fiscal health report, finance director's report, please.
I know this is the moment you've all been waiting for
And
tonight.
staying awake for this.
To hear our riveting presentation. Okay. All right, so we have completed the second quarter of our fiscal year already. We're halfway through the year. This year, the governing body did approve a final fiscal year budget of $25,548,479. And I'm going to go just through each fund individually. Of course, the general fund is our primary operating fund of our budget, and the total budget for the general fund is $11,359,000. The amounts referenced on the slides presented include both operational and capital expenditures in our budget. And at the close of the quarter, our expenditures did exceed our revenue this year by $337,480. That's not anything to panic about. Largely, the city incurred expenditures of $1.5 million for capital projects. And unfortunately, we didn't receive the reimbursements for those projects until the week of January 13th. So they were about 2 weeks after the close of the quarter. But the relief of funding did result in revenues of $2,073,000 to the budget, with $1,700,000 of that going to the general fund. So even though we finished at a deficit of $367,000, we recovered $1.7 million only 2 weeks later. This included said grant and loan disbursements for the North Federal project of $583,000. We also received $69,517 for the school district SRO positions. We received $52,378 in federal and state victim witness funding. And then additionally, we have received our supplemental funding, so our second distribution of supplemental funding of $680,000. Mineral royalties of $165,000, severance tax of $101,000, lottery distribution of $7,840, and property tax of $52,618. Some other items that we need to consider for the general fund. We have not yet received the November invoices from WYDOT for the North Federal project. Interestingly enough, however, we did receive the December billing. So we received the December billing and we've paid it. We've also received the January billing. We have not yet paid that, and we are waiting for the November billing. The project was reported substantially complete by the contractor. And we do have a balance of funds held in reserve in the general fund for the North Federal. And after we make transfers for invoices that we've paid thus far, we will still have a remaining balance of $543,350 after transfers. So again, we still have a couple of months' worth of invoices to receive, but we're sitting quite comfortable as far as that goes. So, and are there any questions on the general fund? Okay, then, for the airport fund is closed the first quarter with a budget deficit of $67,512. I think in my entire tenure here as being the finance director, that's the best the airport fund has looked as far as closing a quarter. This is an improvement of $394,167 over the $461,000 deficit that we reported last quarter. So we've really made some traction in the airport fund. We did receive outstanding grant reimbursements from the Seal Coat and Airfield Marking Project. Those reimbursements totaled $367,598. And then the General Aviation Airport Rebuild Project, we received reimbursements of $157,971. When the council did approve the budget at the beginning of the year, you did approve a $160,000 transfer of passenger facility charge revenues to sponsor the portions of the project. And so, like I said, right now we're sitting at just $67,000, so airport fund is in pretty good shape. Okay, the total budget of the water fund is $4,139,403. Year-to-date so far, again, the expenditures have exceeded the revenues by $77,850. Again, staff did receive grant and loan reimbursements on January 13th of $247,000, so that does cover that deficit balance in the water fund. Again, these figures include capital projects. The two largest capital projects budgeted for the water fund are the Riverton Water Supply Project at $1,043,000 and the North Federal Project at $574,137. The balance of the funds held in reserve for the North Federal Project for the water fund is $792,551. We do need to make a transfer from reserves for the operating account for the sponsors portion of this project. However, I am waiting for all of the invoices to come in so that we can just do one final transfer at the time that the project is complete and we're done receiving invoices. We've got enough cash in the water fund right now to continue to cash flow that project until it's all complete. So we'll make those sponsor transfers after they're all done. The balance of the transfer as of today is $133,955, so that will cover any invoices that we've already paid to this point. We do need to complete the final phase of the Riverton Water Supply Project in the next couple of budget years. And then also the Cowboy Lane project is still pending, excuse me. And then as I got excited in discussing the water meter project, that's something that we will so desperately need as far as a system-wide water meter replacement project. So that will be coming up, I imagine, in the next budget cycle, we're hoping. Or at least up for discussion. The wastewater fund, the total budget is $2,553,000. In this fund, expenditures did exceed the revenues also by $131,000. We received grant and loan reimbursements of $112,000 on January 13th. The two largest capital projects budgeted for the wastewater fund include North Federal. That is $471,127 this year. And we do hold $539,000 in reserves right now for that project. And we will need to make a transfer from reserves to the operating account to help cover that again once we receive final invoicing. The Bell Street Sewer Replacement Project was also budgeted for $120,000 out of the wastewater fund, and that project is complete, and final expenditures have been paid. Total expenditures were $82,100, so we actually spent 68% of the amount projected for that budget this year. So we saved a little bit of money on the Bell Street project. The sanitation fund, the total projected budget for that fund is $2,486,000. At the quarter end, revenues did outpace expenditures by $219,342. If council does remember, we did budget the purchase of a sanitation truck. It was awarded last budget period. However, we did not receive the truck until this budget period. The truck was delivered and is now in operation, and the $297,000 invoice was paid on January 8th, just in January. So you'll see that figure reflected in the third quarter budget report. The Air Service Fund is primarily funded by the City of Riverton, Fremont County, the City of Lander, and other entities. The city also receives reimbursement from the State of Wyoming Air Service Enhancement Program. At the close of the second quarter, the Air Service Fund had a positive balance of $237,462. The high balance is attributed to community contributions that we received at the beginning of the fiscal year. United Air became our official air service provider effective January 12th, and so we are finalizing invoices due to Denver Air Connection, and then we should start receiving United Air funding invoices on a quarterly basis going forward. And with that, that's pretty much the end of the financial report. Does anybody have any questions for me? Okay, hearing none, I just want to make one final reminder to everybody that effective January 16th, all residents are going on the new utility billing structure. So the staff is producing the final bills tomorrow for the month of January. And then we will be migrating all of our meter information into the new rate structure. And we will be sending out our bills under the new utility billing rate structure in February. And the first bills will be due no later than March 15th for our citizens. So I'm sure we'll have lots of questions on those as those bills roll out. But we're happy and excited and got a little bit of work ahead of us, but we're ready to move on this.
And they're not pink anymore. What, are they just
They're
white?
not. They are white bills. The reason is because those pink utility billing cards are getting harder and harder to get, for one thing. They're more expensive, it takes us longer to receive them, and then they're also a washed die format, and it just wreaks havoc on our printers. And so for all of those reasons, we opted just to go with the white utility billing cards. However, I will put in a plug that we do offer free email bill services to our utility citizens, so anybody that would like to receive a bill via email, they're faster, they don't get lost in the mail, and they're a little less expensive for us to deliver. So we're happy to take any phone calls for somebody requesting email bill options.
Thank you, Mia. I would like to throw in right here that earlier in the year, we had some discussion on ways to improve the service in the building department, and Mia and the girls have just exceeded the request, and I appreciate their efforts on our behalf to make that work. And
Thank you. We are sending out text and email notifications for people who are past due on their bills. It is a courtesy reminder that we'll do. But if anybody wants to call and provide us, if they are interested in receiving a text or an email message, please contact the utility billing office, and we'll make sure all of their information is updated and accurate. That way, if they run into a situation where their services are in jeopardy, we can send them a text. And we did receive a tremendous amount of response on those text notices. I think people got used to us calling, and then they just quit answering the calls, and the texts come across right away, and they read those and call in, so it's worked.
good job. Councilman Bailey?
Mia, do you have a rough idea of what percentage of the people are taking advantage of the email billing process?
I don't, Councilman, but I'd be happy to get that information and bring it back to the next meeting.
Yeah, I guess it'd be interesting to me. And have we looked at possibly what our raw cost is for mailing? And maybe if that percentage is too low, we could incentivize people to give them a free gallon of water or something, you know?
I have the costs in the budget, which I don't have in front of me in that particular postage.
Sorry.
That's okay. I have the costs in the postage line item for the budget, but how about I gather some information for you on those types of things, and I will bring them to the next meeting just for informational purposes for you.
That would be really wise. Councilman Larson?
How soon, will you have that volume per customer data with the new software?
Councilman, we need to get that information before the council during the budget process. And then again, that's just going to take whatever time it takes to replace the metering system. And it's all going to depend on the cost in that too. I don't know if we're going to have the money up front to take care of all of it at once, if we're going to have to phase it, or what that's going to look like. So it's too soon for me to give you that information.
Thank you.
But we're really excited to know that it's out there and available.
I see the heads bend over. Maybe we have some proximity of that cost.
Your Honor, we're looking in the between $1.5 and $2 million range for the entirety of that entire project cost, keeping in mind, of course, that we are seeking grant funds for that. Kyle, his team, and the rest of the team have applied for 2 different ones. One we didn't receive, and we talked about it previously. The other one is still pending. So the actual impact to that and the manner in which we will approach it is probably dependent upon funding to some extent.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you.
We're now to 19 on the agenda, which is council committee report and council member roundtable. Councilman Bailey, would you start us off?
Sure. Again, I attended the Force Committee meeting, which, again, Kyle has talked about quite a bit tonight. But again, I think we did a fabulous job this year, getting some projects done, getting them done under budget. You know, our fund actually gained some value, and the sales tax revenues are climbing from the trend, it looks like. And so, you know, I really think we can do, again, some great stuff next year. We've got 5 projects on the agenda, and hopefully, again, if we can get them out bid early and all that kind of stuff, we can get some savings again. So, again, I think that committee is extremely frugal with our taxpayer dollars, and I really appreciate that. And they focused on making sure that not a dime of that money goes to a cause that was not included in the voters' issue, I guess, if that's, you know, the ballot that we approved. So that committee is really careful about making sure that we spend that money wisely. And then I got to attend the airport board meeting, and of course, the ribbon cutting for the United Express last Sunday, I guess it was, 12th. Week ago last Sunday. It was great to see all of that get going. And, you know, again, the past committee and the airport board and city staff, I think have just gone above and beyond in really turning our airport around and getting us good airline service. And it's going to be really nice to be able to check our bags all the way through and, you know, get your whole flight all on one ticket, if that's on one agenda at least. And so, again, I think great things to come. I heard the security guy when I was up there say they already had 35 passengers one day this last week getting on, booked for that plane, which is more than the Denver Air Connections plane would have held. And that's how many got on in Riverton, and I don't know how many were getting on in Sheridan. So hopefully we'll expand to fit the capacity that we have available, so.
Fantastic.
And that's all I have that I can remember.
Thanks. Councilman Hancock.
You know, speaking of the airport, I was curious if it would be cheaper to go from Riverton to locations, connecting through Denver, of course, than it would be to get a ticket from Denver to somewhere else. And I actually tested this out a little bit, just a couple of different locations, like Japan, Brazil. Never been to Brazil. I have no interest in going to Brazil, but, you know, just check it out. I put in a ticket for Brazil and from Riverton to Rio de Janeiro in December, and it was like $3,000. From Denver to Rio de Janeiro in December was like $1,400. So the Riverton ticket was not cheaper. But I did this with a couple of other ones, and to go from Riverton to Sapporo, Japan in December would be $400 cheaper than if you decided to drive down to Denver and take a flight from Denver to it. So I don't know how it works exactly, but I've seen it before where sometimes you'll have something that has connections is going to be less expensive than something that doesn't have connections, or more expensive. It just depends. And you've got these wizards up there that kind of decide what they're going to do with airline prices, put them in a hat and draw them out. But anyway, I would encourage people, if you're planning on going somewhere, before you just automatically assume you've got to go to Casper, got to go to Denver, or something like that, put in Riverton. It might be cheaper, and it might surprise you. $400 cheaper, which I thought was amazing. So, I don't want to steal the chief's thunder about this. So, Chief, tell us about staffing at the Riverton Police Department right now.
Your Honor, we have hired 4 new employees that all will start on Monday. The Riverton Police Department is fully staffed. I can tell you that Kevin Lee, when he worked here for 30 years, he said that the Riverton Police Department was fully staffed for 6 months in 30 years. So we're very excited for Monday to get here. So we'll be fully staffed, and we'll see how long it lasts.
I was going to say that's the next question.
Yeah.
But I was very pleased that we have officers that are interested in working for the city of Riverton that are very well qualified. We have 2 officers now, you said, that are coming in that actually have master's degrees. We talked about that, I think, last meeting. I thought that was great news. Interestingly enough, I think we've had a lot of officers that we've gotten through the Department of Corrections, which is kind of crazy to have somebody come from a state agency to Riverton, Wyoming to try to work here. We've got, with the new hires, we'll have 3 from that originally started with the Department of Corrections.
That's correct.
So
2 of the people that we hire are hiring Monday. One is currently working for the Department of Corrections, and then one of the females is the prior warden at the Honor Farm.
Good.
And actually, that's actually 4, because I forgot about Jim. He was here before, and he came over from
right.
the Department of Corrections. So anyway, we do have the capability, I guess, of attracting very highly qualified applicants, and I think that's good news for the city. The other thing I was going to talk about, I saw the weekly report. This is a weird thing to be excited about, but our special shape for the rendezvous this year is a beagle. And I just think that's the coolest thing ever. I know that sounds funny, but beagles are great. I don't have a beagle, but, it's a great shape for a balloon. And the last thing I would encourage is that we are in need of applicants for the tree board. So I think that people that could apply are people who have heard of trees, people who have seen trees, anybody who breathes oxygen. I would suggest some of those people might be interested in the tree board. I don't think you need to be like a tree surgeon or even a tree nurse. I mean, any kind of person, I think, could apply for the tree board. So if you're a fan of oxygen, we would love to have you apply. That's all.
Thank you.
Would you like to talk more?
Mayor, I don't have too much tonight. We did have another Boys and Girls Club meeting that seems to be picking up quite a bit of steam. They have selected the winner of their volunteer leadership award. So we'll be revealing that here in the next couple weeks. The other thing I really wanted to take a time to point out was, I think it was Saturday that I had to talk to Tony. We had 2 water breaks in my neighborhood about a block apart from each other. And those city guys, they were out there, they jumped right on it and got it knocked out. So I just wanted to give them a kudos and a good job to the city staff. And thank you for getting right on that and having it taken care of. At this time, that is all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Larson.
Follow up on Corey's, the water leaks were on Aspen and on Maple. Maple, this is, to my knowledge, somewhere less than 10, but more than 2 water breaks in that line. Do we have any future plans on replacing that deteriorating line? And it appears that Aspen is no better.
Your Honor, we are including that in a capital improvement budget.
It's not that I'm throwing rocks, but I was there when I saw water shooting up above the road 4 feet. It was, I thought it was unusual for a Saturday to have that much spring runoff. And the other side of the road was frozen solid. So, but I mean, those lines just appear to be what I would call gone. You're probably holding them together with wishes and prayers.
That's about right.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Schatz.
Yes, Your Honor. Before the council meeting tonight, I went to a pause board meeting. It was really fun. We were laughing the whole time. I said that was, wish I could just stay at that meeting because this one's not as exciting. But something that they're going on May 9th, they're doing a low-cost vaccination clinic down there at the fairgrounds in the lunchroom. And at that clinic, they are also doing the city licenses for your animals, for your dogs. So put that on the calendar, May 9th. They're thinking between 8 and 2. They're also looking for some more kennel sponsors for down there at the Paws Shelter. They're in need of 1 dog kennel for they're $300 for a year. And then they still need 7 more cat kennel sponsors. Those are $100 a year. So if you guys can manage that, go down there and sign up for a kennel. The Paws Board is in dire need of board members and volunteers to help coordinate the events. So if you love animals and you want to help support the animals in Riverton, you can join that board. You could reach out to Gina down there at Paws, and she will let you know what exactly we need of you. She says she has tons of kids that go down there and volunteer, which is wonderful, but we need more adults in order to do the fundraising activities and that type of thing. So Paws does a lot with the community as far as fundraising, so you plan to be very busy, but it's also a very fun group to be a part of. The Community Engagement Committee met last week to do some last-minute planning for the Rendezvous Games, which is not this weekend, but next weekend. We currently only have 1 team registered that I'm aware of at this point. So last year we had, I think, 14 for the Winter Games, or actually 16 teams for the Winter Games and 14 for the summer. So we're really behind on our registrations. If you guys have a group of friends or a family that wants to participate and you need a sponsor, I have so many businesses that want to sponsor teams. They just don't have the people to fill those teams. So please reach out to me by phone, email, Facebook, whatever the case is. If you have a group of people that want to participate, let me know and I can get you a sponsor. Friday is the deadline to register, so please let me know as soon as possible on that. But other than that, Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. City Administrator's Report, financial disclosure statements.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll do disclosure statements first. We have received financial disclosure statements from Councilman Bailey, Councilman Rhoda, Councilman Larson, Mayor Guard, Councilwoman Schatza, Councilman Hancock, myself, City Clerk Kristen Watson, and Finance Director Mia Harris as required. Being as Councilwoman Borders is not here, we expect to have hers at the next time, and pursuant to the rules, I will announce that at the next meeting, as soon as we have that. We have a handful of items I wanted to inform you of. One is FCAG is Thursday in Lander in the afternoon. The mayor and I will both attend. That is open, Mayor, that I believe that is open to our elected officials if they so choose. RECDA is tomorrow at the Sundowner at 7 a.m. It's the first of the year. Rendezvous Games, as Councilwoman Schatza pointed out, is February 1st. Also, individuals interested in fielding a team can work through the city, and we will work with the CEC, Councilwoman Schatz, so they can just automatically call the city if they can't get a hold of the councilwoman or somebody else here. We're happy to help through that process. They can just call the general number. They're probably going to get Megan, and Megan knows all about it too, all about it more than most of us. So, one item that is coming up that was discussed in a previous weekly report was we are going to be looking at the schedule for the upcoming budget year. It seems a little early saying that we're halfway through, but that's how our budget works. It takes months to develop. We had planned on putting that on the work session in February. At this point, due to some movement, we don't believe that we will need to have it on the work session. We intend to move it to the first meeting on the 4th. If there's no objection to that, that would alleviate the need for the work session unless council wanted something specific for the work session. So we believe we will be able to present a proposed timeline and process schedule to you by that time for your approval. And as such, we want to make good use of your time. We don't want to avoid any of the traditional, I guess it's not necessarily traditional. We've had a lot of the second Tuesdays that have been work sessions, and then those items have been worked into our existing sessions. And as such, we want to make good use of your time on ours. So we would intend to do that if there's no objections. With staff, there was a ALICE training that we did here at City Hall this Monday. We closed up City Hall during the morning. Our police department did an outstanding job. Officer Larson was the main presenter for the ALICE training. And so you know, ALICE training is alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. That was a relatively long training with some really great scenario-based training, as well as a lot of this is how this works, a lot of examples. It was highly educational. We're really appreciative of the police department for the work they did, and it was really good training. As pointed out in our goals, training is something that we're looking at more and more, and that's something that is being done. So we're appreciative to not only the police department, but also Kristen, the rest of the staff that put it together. It was very well done, and there were Nerf guns. So that's always kind of fun. We currently have 2 new Job Corps students that are going to be working with us through their work-based learning program. They spent today with our community development director, Eric Carr, kind of getting acclimated. We're developing that relationship a little bit. There are volunteer activities, and the more we can coordinate with that organization, we feel the more that we can work together toward mutual benefit. They've been really great to work with, and we enjoy working with them. So we're appreciative of them. So if you see a couple new young people coming around, walking around Community Development Department, please say hi. They're incredibly nice. Staff is currently working with, and discussing with Herman Global about some of the potential branding opportunities for the city and how to develop that. We talked about marketing our community. We're looking at that as part of our overall signage. That process is going to be a little involved, and council will obviously have a very large role in that as we look at that. You should see a contract coming forward in the next month or so that's going to allow us to start that process. I would only say it now, and I'll say it again and probably another dozen times, that when we get into these processes, the marketing and the branding and the logo development and items like that, we try to do as much as we can to be both efficient and provide good public input, because this is something we don't want to do a lot. You don't want to continue to change that. But we're really happy with the first blush of the presentation that has been provided. Herman Global already works with our organization with the airport. So we've been very happy with them. We're appreciative of their involvement and the discussion we're going to be having. In the near future, we're planning on probably a kind of a show and tell, maybe at a work session, maybe at a council session, depending, as we're working towards the purchase of the new body cameras. I've had the chance to see the demo on those, and they're exceptional. So we're working forward to trying to get as many as we possibly can of those on the onset. There was a little bit of a challenge in communication from the company, but we're working through that and trying to get as many as we can. So we hope to show you those pretty soon. We do have one that we've been demoing, and it's pretty impressive. It even changes when you move from dark to light, changes from infrared immediately. It looks like a planned glitch, and all of a sudden the picture changes with no break. Sound is good, visual is good. I think it'll be a great tool for our people. And I guess the last thing I would say is, we talked about it already with PD staffing. This is a nationwide, the challenge that police departments are seeing nationwide with their staffing is exceptional. Across the board, we've heard it over and over and over again. The idea that we here have managed to fully staff at this point is a testament to the work of the police department, Chief Murphy, Kristen, and HR, and we're really appreciative of that. That's pretty exceptional, and we're pretty excited about it. Probably none of us more so than the police department. With that, Your Honor, I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. I need to ask for an approval of the council. It's been suggested that the county attorneys has too much on their plate to help with the verbiage on the 1 cent tax, and Lander City Council's attorney and Riverton City Council attorney suggested that they could help, along with Tony, for that verbiage, for that half cent. And that's that information I brought last meeting, and that is, that half cent would generate a substantial amount of money for transportation, airport fund, WRTA, and the largest amount would go to economic growth for Fremont County, Riverton, Lander. So is there any objection to allowing staff to assist in the wording of that verbiage? Any problem? Looks like that's an approval, so go ahead with that, Tony. You know, I did go and attend the same Girls and Boys Club meeting that Corey was at, and that is a fantastic arrangement. They're going to use it's a rendezvous school, old middle school for those of us that are old enough to have been there. But that is a really welcome arrangement, and they're working really hard to make that go through and get that in place. The SkyWest ribbon cutting, Kyle, you need to get a bunch of kudos along with Mr. Griffin, and just a ton of hard work's been poured into that in a matter of a few days to get all the paperwork and that secured, and it was fun to be included in the ribbon cutting and to go out on the tarmac. And they wouldn't let us get close to the plane for fear we'd jump on it because we had tickets. But they kept us away from the gate. But Ernie was there, and we just can't say enough about the FAST group and the county partners, Lander and the county commissioners that have made us able to retain our air service. And you know, at times we have people say, well, I really don't use the airport, so why are we spending all this money? Well, the economic driver that the airport brings to us is hard to quantify. And the ability to get even your Amazon package overnight is reflective to that use. And so we are really fortunate to have this airport working as well as it does. I attended the airport meeting with Councilman Bailey and the FAST meeting after that. And we got people that are working all the cogs, and it is a well-oiled, and this is an example of where government really has done a good job. And if we hadn't had that FAST group, real good chance we would not have an airline landing in Riverton. And so with that said, Jim Gore's in the room. He's on the airport board. The use of the airlines, the use of the airport by private individuals is picking up. And we have a lot of corporate jets landing, and it's just a really good feather for our hat. And Kyle, you need to pass that down the chain to all the people that helped you accomplish that task. Right down to that food group that's willing to go up there, and that is not a money-making operation yet. Anybody that can and is willing, please go up to the airport and have breakfast and lunch and see the changes. I did attend the tree board, and Councilman Hancock is correct. If you breathe, you're welcome on the tree board. But I should have got copies of this, and maybe Megan could make us copies and get them in everybody's box. But this is just from Sunset to Pershing. And Jim Brittle is on the board, and they have documented every tree on that route. And why they do that is so that they can tell which trees need more irrigation, which trees are not thriving. And I've said it many times, if I'm in charge of trees, the only question is, are the stumps going to be 3 inches or 6 inches? But these guys put in hours. As I'm looking at this, between that space, the highest number is 699 tree placements in that space. Rusty's on that committee, and he takes really good care of this. And we take this for granted. We do need people on the tree board. And if you like to garden and you like to, it's an advisory board. We're not expecting you to go plant anything. But we need your opinions on how to beautify Riverton, and there is monies available to make that work. So that committee does need some help. The other thing that Tony and Todd Byers, and I went to the wellness roundtable up at CWC Saturday, and Todd was able to escape, but Tony and I stayed. It was about 5 hours, wasn't it, Tony? Tony kept trying to leave, but I wouldn't let him. And we learned a lot of really good things that had very valid basis to it. And we do need to learn to heal and to think of other people and their experiences in life besides just our own. And it's in leadership positions, that's a real important thing to do. The very next item is the Martin Luther King March, and that's exactly what that march is all about, is paying attention to other people besides our own designated interests. And it was fun to see. There was probably 150 people there, and it was a good activity. The training that the police put together was great. I would like to thank the chief for supplying that, and Officer Larson for his presentation. I think, watching the city staff, I think they really interacted, and it's an important conversation to have. Officer Larson went through the building and fired a starter's pistol, a .32, to give us a feel for what that sounds like. So when you're in the building, sometimes that gets muffled and you don't really realize what you're listening to or what's going on. And so it was great training. I would like to especially thank Jim Gore for, he's come to my office twice. I don't know if he's just a glutton for punishment or what. He comes to these meetings and sits through them. And I appreciated his comments and his time to educate me. I really do appreciate Jim. Today, this morning early, my day started really early with a meeting with the mayors that control FTAG. And FTAG is our bus system, and I would encourage all of us to pay attention to that. And where we may not use that ourselves, that is a vital system, somewhat like our airport. And we need to help and encourage the enhancement of that activity. And the funding mechanism has changed just a little bit, and it's making it difficult for that process to survive. And so any help or any suggestions, we'd be glad to hear those. Other than that, I ran out of places to go, and I actually had to go home for a couple hours. And I appreciate all the work that you guys do as a council. And I see, that's the beauty of it. I go to the airport board, and there's Councilman Bailey, and he just doesn't miss. And it's important to have that feedback and get that community involvement. I would encourage people to come out and to support the Rendezvous games. It's a lot of fun. Don't miss out. We'll find you a sponsor and get those teams and come join. With that said, if there's no other business, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you. Thank you. We're adjourned at 8:55.